Hello, everyone, and welcome to this video, to this session, where we will present some examples of how astrology can help understand the cycles of investments and how investors, either amateur or seasonal or professional, how they can engage with a better attitude and results and feeling of protection and feeling of being able to achieve a higher return in their decisions. So for those who don't know me, my name is João Medeiros, as you see here. I'm a professional astrologer. I'm Portuguese, and I have researched astrology for more than 20 years. So I will explain with some details, examples of how in the long term, and especially in the short term, you can understand better how astrology works related to financial markets. So this presentation is also focused on people that don't know astrology, on people that don't know anything about investments, and I hope you enjoy it. You can put a comment or put questions, and in the end, I will answer some of those questions. I'll ask you to stay until the end because I will give some more precise information about the current market, not very detailed, but I hope and I feel that you are going to like it. So, nowadays, investments or being inside investments is not so difficult as it was in the past because of the digital era. In the digital era, it's much easier with a click in the iPhone or in the phone to make a financial decision or buy stocks or buy cryptos or buy any other type of assets. So more and more people that in the past did not engage in investments, they now are starting to do it. Even very riskier investments like cryptocurrencies. So we are living through a shift in terms of paradigm where the digital technologies have much more power and dimension in our lives, and that has an impact, a direct impact in people that understand that they can also invest. They don't need to be working slaves for the rest of their lives, and they can invest as well. So this is one very important point to understand the present context. But on the other hand, it's also true that the world of investments is very risky, and the risk of severe losses is just the same as the risk of high gains. So it's natural that people have some restraints regarding to start to invest more. And it's not by accident, because even financial professionals, investors, experts, they have one problem. And investments in general, financial investments, there is one big gap or one big problem in financial investments. Because to be honest, sometimes it's like a jungle to be inside investments or high risk investments. There is a lot of speculation, and it's normal that people feel like it is like a jungle. But the problem that there is in financial investments that even experts don't know how to cope with well is the problem of timing, the problem of understanding well the cycles, either weekly, monthly, annually. And that problem is a big problem because many times this is the ultimate edge that an investor can have, is the understanding of is this cycle of rising of these shares, did it stop already, or will it continue? Is it a good time now? Are we in a bottom or are not in a bottom? Those types of questions for an investor, either amateur or pro, is really important to understand. And as far as I know, because I've been to a lot of lectures of experts in finances, and most of them get very wrong the cycles. And if you follow their advices, normally you don't get a good return, and you can feel in a big trouble. So this is to tell two things just to begin with. First thing, we don't have to be working slaves for all our lives, and people are starting to understand that to have financial freedom, you must start to manage some investments. Okay. Second thing, with the new digital era, it's a bit easier. Third thing, there is a kind of a gap in terms of the financial knowledge, which is the understanding of the cycles. And let me tell you by experience that astrology is most probably the most adequate and perfect tool to overcome that obstacle and to understand what they are, these sometimes unpredictable cycles. So what I'm telling you is that an investor or amateur investor that understands a bit of the cycles, even it's only the new moons or the full moons, is more prepared to do more profitable investments and to do it with a higher degree of safety and protection for not to lose money. So I will give you examples of analysis and of results, very specific examples. I will explain, for instance, the types of peaks of cryptocurrencies, also how you can build an index, monthly index for the general stock markets, very reliable. Also the importance of the 7-year cycle and how we can understand peaks to the day of specific markets such as oil or even gold with examples. So I'm seeing already some comments, but please do and comment the session for now. So last thing before we start to do the technical part is this: the sooner someone starts to learn how to invest, the better. Like anything in life, it requires experience. So the sooner you start to invest, even it's really a small amount, the sooner you become more experienced, and the sooner you will get to the stage where you can have good results. It's like riding a bicycle, like driving a car. Everything requires experience. And for those of you who are listening to that never experienced any kind of investment, financial investment, because of fear, but they want to become have more financial freedom, I must tell you that, like anything, the sooner you start, the better. And if you're going to start, it's better to have some kind of map of the territory. And that's one big thing, because most people think financial area is uncharted territory. It's an uncharted territory, but in reality, it is not an uncharted territory, because we have a magnificent tool available, which is mundane collective astrology, that can help us to understand and to anticipate those cycles. Okay? So you can put any question. Let me see. Let me put any question. But now I will explain some very interesting examples of how to work with this. Thank you. So, for instance, there is a myth in the financial markets that in the long term, the stock markets is always rising. It's always climbing up. And so these people, these kind of scholars in finances, they say, if you invest something every year, in the long run, you will be fine and you will have profit. Well, it is not true. This is not true. As you can see, this is the chart for the S&P 500, which is the aggregate of the 500 most competitive companies in the United States. And as you can see, there are sometimes cycles of continuous fall of this index, of continuous decline of this index, and cycles of continuous growth. And so it depends, because if you enter, for instance, in 1968, you will have 10 to 12 years of falls of the market. If you will enter in 2000, you will have 10 years of falls of the market. On the other hand, if you enter in 2009, you will have 12 years of rise of the markets. Or if you enter in 1982, you would have almost 15 years of rise of a bull run market in the long term, which would be magnificent. The problem is most people, even experts, don't know when this happens. They don't know when this happens. Most experts, of course, not all of them. But astrology can give us a superb tool to understand this precise cycle. For instance, do you know where we are now in terms of this cycle? Do you know if we are in a upward trend in long term or a downward trend in a long term? So the answer to this question is given by the cycle of one particular planet that rules the phases of decay and growth of the stock markets. And let me tell you in advance, what is this planet? If you are already a student in astrology, you might have guessed. If you're not, probably not. But this planet is the planet Saturn. So to understand these flows of the market in the long run, especially, it's fundamental to understand the cycles of Saturn that also rules governments, states, countries, and big structures. So there are phases when states collapse and there are institutions collapse. And there are phases where institutions become so strong that sometimes they become also fascists. Okay, so it is very important to understand, if you are especially a long-term investor, where we are right now. Is it clear? Please leave a comment if it's getting clear for you. So this is one tool already. If you want to become or are already an investor, is understanding the cycles of Saturn, which is the Lord of money and the Lord of empires and the Lord of companies. Okay, but there are more tools, even more interesting to understand if a given year is has a tendency of crisis or a tendency of a big growth. And that other tool, we can say it is the 7-year cycle tool. The 7-year cycle tool. So every 7 years, there is a repetition of patterns. So thank you for those of you who that are making comments. So, for instance, the years 1987, where there was a crash in the stock markets, 1973, where there was an oil shock, 2001, where there was the September 11, 2008, where there was the crash of Lehman Brothers, 2015, not good for markets, negative, 2022, war in Ukraine, negative for markets. All these years were in the same 7-year cycle, and all these years were ruled by the planet Mars, which rules wars and financial crisis. So, if you start doing investments before a Mars year starts, it's most likely that you lose a lot of money and that you become very frightened. Okay, but on the contrary, for instance, you can see right now that Venus years are normally very good. So on average, for instance, if the normal return of the stock market, the American stock market, is 8% per year, the Mars years are negative, below 2% negative, but the Venus years are almost on average 20% positive. So if you have a year that's 20% positive in terms of return, that means that many companies make 5 to sometimes 10 times 20%. The strongest companies, when there is on average a very good year, like 20% for the average companies, the good companies perform much better. So in these years, it's likely that, for instance, an Amazon or an Apple or a Tesla can grow more than 80% or 70 or even more. So this is a second tool, very important. The first, Saturn cycle. The second, the 7-year cycle. 2022 was Mars year. 2024 will be a Venus year. So in theory, better for the markets. Okay, but stay until the end because you'll see more information about this. So to continue, 2023 was a Sun year co-ruled by Mars. So normally you have a ruler and a co-ruler. And in my course that I gave last year and made a forecast for the next year, 2023, I mentioned that this year would be a bit shaky because it's co-ruled by Mars, and especially after October, and in October 2023, there will be a kind of a political earthquake in the world, or a kind of crisis, a political or financial crisis, and that happened. Okay, my students can testify that I'm telling the truth. So this is only using astrological techniques, and by that I could tell them that was very likely that October would also be negative for the markets, like the month of March. Okay, so we have a principal ruler and a second ruler, and that gives us information. And it's important for you to know that, for instance, the next year, 2024, will be a Venus year ruled by the moon. Venus year ruled by the moon. And that means, among other things, that people, the common people, will have more expression in terms of politics. Of course, it's an election year, but that has consequences for the markets. There are consequences for being more moon Venus year. Okay, thank you. So to continue, how can we say, so this is the broad part, and the long-term part is understanding where Saturn is, understanding which year is this. Is it in general good? Should we be warned about some kind of collapse, or not, or warned of some kind of bull run, very intense? So knowing this, it's already a decisive information to have when you go in and are in the markets. Okay, so now another big important question is this: how can we know to the day peaks of specific markets? And I will give you 3 examples. The first will be oil, the second will be gold, and the third will be cryptocurrencies later on. So, for instance, in 2022, there were 2 days of peaks of the price of oil. That was 8th of March and 8th of June. And the coincidence of these days is like 100%, because it was the precise conjunction of the planet Mars that rules oil with Venus in a sign where Mars is very well positioned, Capricorn. It's called the grace of Mars in Capricorn. And the other day was in Mars was conjunct to other very good planet in astrology, or benefic we call it, which is Jupiter, in the sign of Aries, which is also a sign where the planet Mars, the god of war, feels wonderful, because it is his own sign, his own throne. So these 2 conjunctions, as we call it, are very rare, are not so common to happen every year. Mars making a conjunction to benefic in a sign that he is like a lord. And so that means it's very strong in these days, that in these 2 specific days, he's very, very strong. And that means that markets ruled by this planet, such as oil, tend to peak in these days in specific. Of course, this whole year, 2022, was a Mars year, and that helps as well to the strength of this specific market. Second example, gold. this year, 2023, gold peaked in the May the 4th. May the 4th. And by coincidence or not, May the 4th was a precise day of an eclipse of the moon. And how is this interesting? Because in the eclipse of the moon with Sun in Taurus and the moon in Scorpio, symbolically fits perfectly a peak of gold for many reasons. For one reason, it's because gold is ruled traditionally by the sun, but it's also a Taurus asset, because Taurus assets or investments are concrete, are very stable, and are very material. They are not ethereal, they are not digital, they are very material, concrete. And gold is also a market of Taurus, because it's a deposit of value that people tend to relate to something that endures in time. So Sun in Taurus and the moon eclipsed in Scorpio, it's symbolically the financial and speculation side of finances eclipsed. So it would be normal that in such an eclipse, it could be a day of peak of the gold, which happened. So this is a second example, probably not so clear as the example we will see later on of cryptocurrencies. Okay. So another good example, probably you already have heard something about Mercury retrograde. It's no reason for panic to be living a Mercury retrograde phase, but Mercury retrograde is a phase of 24 to 22 days that takes place 3 times a year, and it's normally connected to problems of communications and problems of also other kinds of problems, like for instance in traffic, like for instance with machines that you have that can break up, but also they are connected. This cycle is connected to not so good performances of the stock markets. And so if you make the accountability of the worst performing months of the stock markets, American, since 1970, you would expect only one quarter, around 25% of these worst months would take place in Mercury retrograde, right? Wrong, because there is a correlation. There is a correlation. And so, as you can see, like for instance, the most recent months of this crash was the months of March 2020, where the stock markets dropped 12% in less than 1 month. And it coincided with the period of Mercury retrograde. In the 7 most dramatic months ever since this year, 6 of them were during the Mercury retrograde phase. So it is true that Mercury retrograde, on average, is related to underperformance of the markets, because we would expect, if there was no correlation, that would be 25%, but it's not. It's 85%. And from my experience, I can tell you that on average, this tends to happen. On average, especially in the beginning of the phase of Mercury retrograde, the markets behave more poorly. They are not so strong in terms of speed normally. Okay, so you have seen some examples of specific planet rules of specific market. If that planet in a particular day is very strong, for instance, by conjunction to other important planet, that tends to be a peak of that market. You also have seen right now, for instance, that another example of a way of understanding the cycles in terms of months, when Mercury becomes retrograde, normally there are problems in many aspects of life, but also in the markets. There are always exceptions to this kind of rule. There are always exceptions, but on average, it is true. And right now, what I want to show you is the preview of 2023 that I presented to the students of my course, Financial Astrology, in the last year, in December 2022. People enrolled in the course. I presented the course, and during the course, I made a kind of forecast for the ups and downs trends of the general stock markets, the S&P 500, but that is related to most companies. So if I say that is likely that in March there will be a fall of the S&P 500, the American market, it is very likely that, for instance, Facebook or Amazon underperform in that month. So it could be a drop, a dip. So I made this forecast, and to make it more user friendly, I put some emojis. Okay, and what I used in the techniques that I used was especially the new moons and the full moons cast for New York and the transits in general. And so I said, okay, from the beginning of January to 21 of January, okay, fine. 21 of January to 20 February, great. 20 February to March 21, not okay. Danger, big danger. From then on, and after April 20, okay, more or less until July 17th, where there is another new moon. From then on, things get more dangerous, and especially after September and during October. That was the forecast made to these students in December 2022, and they can confirm, and you can see testimonials in our website. You can see testimonials in our website that this is true. Okay, so you can see the testimonials in this link, and you can confirm. So what is the difference from the forecast to reality? So in this chart, you have in the upper part the preview made in December 2022, and in the lower part the reality of what happened so far in S&P 500. And as you can see, the correlation is magnificent. The correlation is magnificent because in the yellow it's the smile, it's the good part of the cycle, corresponded to the good part of the rising stock market. When you have an arrow for danger or an emoji for problems, there was a downfall. Again, green stable, yellow it's fine, the markets will tend to go up. And when red emojis start to appear, and especially the red arrow, very high danger of collapse. And that danger, the second danger, was because of this very high probability of a political problem in October that I could tell my students that would happen. So in order to understand, can you show us to the end of the year? Ana Matos is here, confirmed I was there. Can you show this to the end of the year? No, I will not show, but I will say something about the end of the year. So as you can see, the correlation is, we could say, very, very, very high, not to say amazing, and that could help the investors. So if you make some accounting about how this could help, normally people say that if you buy the index, not one specific stock, but the general index of the stock market, you will have normally an 8 to 10% return every year. And if you buy each month a little bit of the S&P. So if you have done that this year, 2023, so far, buying every month like 10,000 or 1,000 euros, you would have in the end right now not even 2% of return, 1.5, 1.8% of return. If you had bought in the beginning of the year like 10,000 euros, Right now, that will be giving you 1,000 euros, 10%, a bit less, but 10%. But for that, you must know, or you should have known, where to enter. And you should have entered in January, because if you entered in May, you will have right now a negative return. So if you use the table or the preview or the forecast, let us say, that I made, and I must warn you that I made this forecast with caution, with a lot of very cautiously, because I told the students, this is my perspective because of my experience. I cannot tell you for sure that this will happen. So it's always our responsibility. But if one has followed these indications and sell before the red and buy before the green, the S&P, the outcome would be 20%, would be double than buying in the beginning of the year, and 20% almost more than just buying every month a little bit of the stock market. If also you bought S&P shorts, which is the equivalent, if the S&P goes down 1%, you gain 1%, then that value would be even higher, almost 30%, if you have followed this kind of forecast. And because many companies, many big companies like the Seven Magnificents, they tend to follow more or less the same up and down. So if a month is very bad, it's normally bad for many companies at the same time. If you just adapt it or use that same preview for the whole market, the same preview for the whole market, if you use that for Tesla, for instance, you could use it for other companies, what would be the outcome? So if you would buy Tesla a bit every month in the beginning of the year, right now you would have 12% more. If you have bought in the beginning of the year, so far you would have like 85%. But for that, you should have known that that time was a bottom, and that is difficult to know. If you have used this kind of preview, that is for the general market, but specifically to buy and sell Tesla, like selling before the red and buying before the yellow, you would have, in only 7 months, you would have a return of 164%, which means if you have invested 1,000 euros, you would have 2,064 euros. If you had invested 100,000, you would have right now 2,064, and you would have avoided the most difficult part, which would be after July the 20th or July the 17th. So this is only to say that it was like an experimental course based on 20 years of experience, also based on the research, very detailed, of more than 100 years of the stock market. I have researched with a high degree of detail and accuracy every year of the stock market since the beginning of last century. So in order to achieve this kind of forecast, I had to have many cycles into account, but especially the new moons and the full moons, okay? Especially the new moons and the full moons. So, to continue, how about cryptocurrencies? How about cryptocurrencies? Well, I was also cautious doing some kind of forecast for cryptocurrencies in that course, but what I said was something like this, or really like this: forecast made in December. Well, I believe, for many reasons, that in this year, 2023, Bitcoin will assume difference compared to other altcoins in terms of credibility. And in terms of peaks and drops, I think because of the cycles, one cycle in specific, there will be a rise from the beginning of January until late February, a minor peak. After that, a fall in the beginning of middle of March. After the middle of March, tendency to rise, especially another peak in the end of March, From then on, I didn't know, I didn't find a drop or a bottom, but I told the students that was very likely that we would have a peak season from late October 2023 until late January 2024. So I used specific cycles to make this kind of forecast. I was not 100% sure, but let us see what happens. Let us see what happens. And what happened is that the red circles is the indication of buying opportunities identified in the forecast made in last December. The blue circles are the peak, the probable peaks identified in that forecast. So, as you can see, the tendency of the markets was very, very according to that indications. And if someone would have done that in 3 months, if a student would have done that in 3 months, he would have an 84% return. 84% return. There was no clear drop after the late March, beginning of April. Probably that's why I could not identify a particular fall. But we are living now what was also pinpointed, which was a phase of a peak season. A peak season. So it's really interesting to understand this, and that this kind of information was only possible because of astrology and because of knowing a little bit more of mundane collective astrology adapted to the particular markets. Because I have to study the other peaks and drops of this particular crypto market and understand what were the patterns. And the patterns were ridiculously clear, specifically for Bitcoin and for cryptos, where it was hard to believe that these patterns were so clear. And the interesting thing is that most people that are engaged in this world of cryptocurrencies, they don't know anything about this. Most of them, or almost everyone, they don't know anything about this cycle. And you don't have to understand a lot of astrology to know it. So I believe this is something really, really, really interesting, to say the least. And is one small example, but I will show you more examples in Bitcoin and crypto in particular. Okay? Thank you for your comments. So if we are a bit more detailed and precise, let us see what were the peaks and drops of the precise days of Bitcoin in specific. And as you can see in this chart, all peaks happened in days, 1 or 2 days in the precise day of a new moon or a special full moon. So for instance, the 20th of February was a peak and was the precise day of the new moon. You can check it out in the internet when was the new moon. Near the 18th of April, I believe it was 19th, but probably 18th, there was another peak of Bitcoin. Because after that, there was a drop. And that was another new moon, special new moon, because it was conjunct Jupiter. So when you have these things happening, a new moon joining a very important planet, it is more likely that you have a peak. There was another peak, this time a full moon, because it was a full moon in Cancer. And in Cancer, the sun serves the moon. So the way of thinking, it's a bit opposite to the new moon. It was also a peak. And Venus, which is not a very interesting planet in terms of markets, but also retrograde, made a conjunction in the new moon. And after that, there was also a drop. So right now, we are getting closer to another peak, which is the new moon in Scorpio conjunct Mars in the 13th of November. But there is a longer cycle of peaks for other technical reasons that will last until end of January at least. So we are now in a peak season of cryptocurrencies for other reasons that I will not explain right now until the end of January. But already in this next new moon, the 13th, 12th to 14th, there could be naturally a peak and a drop. Okay, so as you can see, this is not really interesting, really not really difficult to understand, because the data is very overwhelming. This data is very overwhelming. I did not invent this. This is facts. I did not make this up. This is a fact, okay? This is the precise days of the peaks and the precise days of the new moons. You can check it out and confirm with your own research. So this is one tool that I use. And for that, you should understand also for the big markets, the stock market, you should also understand simple things like what are strong signs for the markets and what are weak signs for the market. For instance, traditionally September, which is a Virgo month, is very weak for the stock markets, traditionally. Why? Because it's a mutable sign. It's a sign of end of season. And always when you have a sign ending a season, the likelihood of a drop is higher than in the beginning of the season. So as you can see, everything is connected. Everything is connected. And I will show you now, if you want to know more, how you can study and understand and use it for yourself. So, as I was saying in the beginning, we'll have a new edition to forecast and prepare 2024. And you don't need to be an investor. You don't need to know astrology. But of course, you must be committed to understand and to listen to these lectures and to be there and to put your own questions. We will start the 29th of November, but you'll have an early bird until November the 7th. Okay, it's 5 online lectures of 1 hour and 30 plus 4 Q&A sessions where I will be only answering to questions. And this is the main goal, to understand this up and down of the markets, specifically the stock markets. And we will try to do it also for the crypto market as well. And to make broader and longer term also preview of the markets in terms of the next few years, to understand what could be the tendencies, especially if you are a long-term investor. Okay, especially if you are a long-term investor. So in the first lecture, we'll talk more about the ethical considerations and spiritual context of financial astrology. Also, we will speak about the 7-year cycle and especially what is the energy of the next year, 2024, what that might mean in terms of markets. In the second lecture, we'll make the correlation between the planets and the markets, which planet rules which market, and what is the importance of that. And also, we will explain a little bit more what is this 14-year cycle of up and down, a falling phase and rising phase of the stock markets and where we are now. We will also mention other cycles of other planets that are all also important. In the third lecture, we will make the monthly preview of the markets, of the financial stock markets, S&P 500, like we did last year. If we get the same results, it will be already amazing. But I believe we can have even better results because now we have more experience and can understand better how does it work. So I believe we can get even better results than the last forecast. And we'll mention also and explain what are the tendencies of peak days and peak and dropping days in the markets. The fourth section, we will address especially other types of markets, such as cryptocurrencies and also fiat currencies. And we'll see also some specific companies and try to understand what could be those specific companies. For instance, I can tell you, and it's recorded, I can show you the recorded if you request it, that in last year we had the chart of the cryptocurrency Solana. And I told students that according to the chart of Solana, cryptocurrency, if Solana would survive until the middle of the year, in the end of the year, it will probably skyrocket or climb very high. Why? Because the sun of Solana would enter the sign of exaltation in the end of the year, this year 2023, and because it is also a season, because of other cycles, it was a peak season for the crypto sector in general. So that happened. And so if someone would have believed that type of forecast and bought Solana in the beginning of January at $10 or 10 euros, right now it's $45 or 45 euros. It's a 4 times increase, but especially in this last month. So for you to understand that it seems a little bit crazy, but it's like, yes. Claudia is asking, I will ask all your questions in the final part, but yes, the sessions are recorded and you can see it during a whole year. So if you're not there during the lectures live, if you're not there in these precise days, I will tell you what are the days. You will get access to the platform when it will be when the videos will be installed, and so you can see it anytime during 1 year. Okay, so these are the precise schedule. Lecture 1, the 29th of November, lecture 2 and the Q&A, the 4th December, then 7 December, then 11 December, then 14 December, 18, 21, 28. And this final session, 8th January, where I will make the final updates and conclusions to the next year. So if you register, if you enroll right now until the 7th of November, you will have a very special price, which is 950 euros and a special ebook. Yes, someone is asking if is this course will be held in English? Yes, it will be held in English. But as you can see already, my English is plain simple. I'm not very proficient or superbly proficient. I'm more proficient in astrology. And so you will understand also because it will be written down, the handouts. And so you'll have PDF materials that you can print down and read. You have the videos and you have the handouts that you can print out and read and study and do your research with them. So after this, and you also will get, if you enroll until this date, you will also get a special ebook where you will be invited to work upon your planet Saturn. So it is very important if you are into material in goals and doing investments. It is very important to understand that you are making a deal with yourself, which is in order to get those results, there is a deal, like a spiritual deal. And that deal is that you must improve your personality. And to improve your personality materially, you must develop your Saturn of your own chart. So you'll have an ebook to explain this and to make this invitation. And where do you register? In this link here, financial astrology course 2024. Go there, financial astrology course 2024. Thank you for praising my English. Thank you. I will answer your questions, but right now I will explain again that if you want to enroll in this course, you don't have to know astrology. You don't have to be an investor. I will not explain you how do you start in terms of opening accounts or which is a platform where you should open your account and how much you should invest. I will explain the principles. This will not be financial advice. I cannot give financial advice and be responsible for your decisions. You're responsible for your decision. But as you can see, this kind of work it's extremely accurate, and you will not find it anywhere, probably in the financial realm. You will not find it, most likely, in the financial realm, because it's the result of my own experience and passion for mundane collective astrology. So, I will answer some questions, but if you enroll later on, the price will be higher. And if you roll 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, it will be 500 euros higher. And I must warn you that it is the last time that I will make such a price for a course like this. Next year, it is very likely that the price of this course will be 5 times higher or 10 times higher. And if you enroll now, you will have discount in the next coming years where I'll do this kind of courses. Okay? So, to answer your questions, Pedro Moreira, he asks, can you please explain how you calculate the rear regency of the planets? Pedro, I could, but what I must say you is that technical part I explain in the course. But the trick is to know how to read the new year chart when the sun enters Aries. The co-ruler is founded when you interpret the new year chart, which is the chart when the sun enters Aries in spring. That is why I could tell my students I was a bit worried about this year in terms of crisis, either wars or political or financial crisis. I was very worried because of the New Year chart, and especially from October on. And you have the Israel conflict right now. If you follow me up, if you follow me up in Facebook, you know that I'm being 100% telling the truth. I'm 100% telling the truth about this. Many people made comments and thanked me for saying that in advance, that it was very likely that there was a door of evil opening up in October, and we should be prepared to something like September 11 or something like a new crisis or political crisis. So I will wait for more questions, but I must again tell you that if you want to start investing, of course it is a jungle, and you have to have the best tools. This is one tool. This is not the only tool, but it is a very important tool. A very important tool that you will not find anywhere in the world right now. And it is very likely that in the coming years, I would say 10 to 20 years, many more people will use this tool for investments, and Astro investments can become more popular in probably 20 years or 10 years from now, because the accuracy can be really amazing. And you have half the world chasing a tool that can give this kind of information. It's not the only tool, but it's a very decisive tool to have an edge. Christian is asking, do you also consider Pluto, like Pluto in Capricorn? Of course. I also use the transpersonal planets, and of course, it is very important to understand next year that is the final transition of Pluto from Capricorn to Aquarius, and that has implications in terms of markets. Being a transition from Capricorn to Aquarius. Thank you, Susanna. Any more questions? So I will say again, if you want to put any question, you can also go to finastrology.com and or to this email, info@finastrology.com, and tell us what is your question, info@finastrology.com. But you can enroll right away. in this link, finastrology.com/financial astrology course 2024, like it's here in the handout. Okay, so to make a summary, a last and final summary. In this new digital world, it is easier to become an investor because with a simple click on your phone, you can decide and the transaction is immediate. That didn't happen 30 years ago. There are more opportunities as well because of technology developing. The sooner you start, the better. The better are the tools that you have, the more prepared you are. And this tool is really, to be honest, really amazing. If you start already with a tool like this, you will be much more prepared. And this tool is not acknowledged, is not known for most, if not every expert in the financial market. Almost all of the experts in financial markets, of course, they know there are cycles, but they don't have a precise tool to pinpoint it with a very high degree of accuracy, the cycles. And astrology is simply fabulous because it gives us this kind of information. Of course, you must interpret it, of course, but in this course, I will make the homework for you and I will translate what could it mean to have, for instance, in next April, a cadent new moon with Mars conjunct Saturn in the 8th house. I will explain what would that mean. Well, what will it mean? Mars crossing Aries conjunct the North Node in May 2024. What will that mean for the markets in principle? Or a very spectacular configuration, which is August 2024, where we will have Mars conjunct Jupiter squaring Saturn. What can that mean for the markets and for your investments? So I will translate all this information for you the best as I can for you to have a good preparation for this new year. So if you are interested, please contact us at info@finastrology.com or go directly to our page finastrology.com or finastrology.com/financial astrology course 2024. Click there. You can see the details there that I showed right here. All the details like the dates, like the contents, and like the goals, and like the results that we had in the past. And you are more than welcome. You are more than welcome to come. For financial institutions, the course is very cheap. Of course, it is. For individuals, thank you. Most people, if they had followed the suggestions, they would have a spectacular return if like last year. So thank you for all of you that are praising the work, that are praising this work. And I thank you so much for you praising the work. And also some students that were here from last year. This is an example. I hope I was clear. I hope I was clear enough, and hope to see you. I hope to see you in this course. If you have any queries, any questions, please put us the questions. info@finastrology.com. If you like to register, you know already where you have all the informations in this link right here below. Until the 7th of November, it's cheaper. It's cheaper. For a financial expert, this is like almost free. This course is almost free for the gains that you can have with an information like this. And in the next years, 2025 and so on, most likely this price will be very, very, very much higher, at least 5 times, probably 10 times higher. Okay, so this is a big opportunity because you will also have discount if you register now for the next seasons and for the next years. Okay, so please contact us if you have informations. We spoke about yes, Bento. The answer is yes to your questions. we explained that in the long term, markets are not always rising. And if you enter in the peak, you can lose money for years and years. The planet that uh, correlates more clearly to these patterns is the planet Saturn. It's fundamental to understand the cycle of Saturn. You also have the tool of 7-year cycle. There is a repetition of patterns every 7 years, so you can already see what happened 7 years ago and 14 years ago to understand next year, 2024. You have also cycles like retrograde planets when the markets become a bit more stuck and slow and tend to drop, especially Mercury retrograde during the months of Mercury retrograde. You understand that when there are particular conjunctions, there could be peaks of specific markets. You could see that cryptocurrency market was not difficult to forecast because the patterns of the past are so crystal clear. And you saw it was possible to achieve a monthly forecast of the S&P that you can use for other companies as well. That was very accurate, at least 80%, if not more, of accuracy, using new moons, full moons, and transits. And this knowledge that I will present with detail in the course. So please, if you felt this information was clear for you, if you are in a phase where you are already high risk investor or an expert investor and want to understand more how does this work and how could be the tendencies, please subscribe and enroll in the course. But if you are an amateur or if you don't know anything about astrology, you are very, very welcomed as well. Of course, if you know astrology, it will be easier for you, but you don't have to understand astrology to do it. So I believe there are no more questions for now. I would like to thank everyone that was here and to tell for the people that are watching this video after it is recorded, either because they found it on YouTube, in our channel, or in our website, and we are already after 7 November or after December 2023, you can still buy this course. You can still profit from the information of this course. You can still enroll in this course because the course will be recorded live with the students live in the session, but it will be recorded and put inside a platform, and you can buy this course and understand the tendencies with these tools that could happen in the next year. So thank you so much and see you there.